One afternoon in October of 1880, something happened in this harbour that the town would never forget. 13 men launched the lifeboat into stormy seas. 11 of them never came back. And that's not even the most tragic part of the story. This is the story of the Eliza Adams. Wells Next to Sea is recorded in the Doomsday Book. Voila! Don't worry about that bit. The next to sea bit wouldn't have been added for centuries, but it wasn't until the 13th century, after King John granted Wales a charter, the town really began to prosper. By the end of the 1500s, Wales was a major port in Norfolk, exporting grain and malt from fields inland. This street I'm on now would have been well and truly alive during the mid-1700s. Staith Street. It was the end of the trade route in Norfolk because it goes down to the Staith. This building here would have been a warehouse. Shipbuilding had also become a major industry locally. By the mid-19th century, Wales fully established working port town. Grain and malt going out, coal coming in. Alongside all of that, Wales had also established a very strong fishing community. It still to this day has a very strong fishing community. And that fishing community also forms the local lifeboat crew. And the lifeboat crew are volunteers that will go out in the worst of the worst storms to save somebody else for free. And back in the mid-19th century, in rowing boats, no engine, no radio, cork life jackets, and just paddle oars, which is where this story begins. It's a Friday in October in 1880, and all week a north-westerly gale has been picking up. The north-westerly gales come down from the Arctic Circle to clear passage through to the Norfolk coast from the Arctic. As the gale's been getting worse, vessels that are on voyage past the Norfolk coast have been coming in and out of Wales to seek shelter. And as they do, some of them get into difficulty, begin getting into trouble. One such vessel that does this is named Sharon's Rose, and Sharon's Rose is laden with coal. She runs aground on Holcombe Beach. So the distress signal goes up, the message gets back to Wales Lifeboat Station, and the crew launch the lifeboat. The lifeboat at the time is a vessel named the Eliza Adams. She's a 33-foot pulling and sailing vessel designed to right herself in the event that she capsizes. She can accommodate a crew of 13. Primary source of propulsion is by rowing, though she does have 2 masts for auxiliary sail power. So away goes the lifeboat and it reaches Sharon's Rose. They successfully come alongside and they get all the crew off and bring them back to the safety of the lifeboat station. Job's a good one, but not quite. See, on the way back in, the crew of another vessel are signalling distress to the lifeboat. That vessel, called the Ocean Queen, similarly to Sharon's Rose, is seeking shelter from the gale force winds at the mouth of Wells Harbour, and it had thrown its anchor down. But the problem was that its anchor line had broke. It snapped off. So in the turbulent seas, it's just being thrown around by Mother Nature, and they've called for help to the lifeboat. But the lifeboat crew have just been out, and they're exhausted, and we're talking way out there somewhere. So 8 members of the first crew that have just been out are replaced with fresh crew members, and 5 of the crew that have just been out, they go out again, and those 5 are the most experienced of the first crew. People such as the coxswain, Robert William Elsdon, and his brother, John Elsdon, but they are exhausted. And in the time that's passed since the first rescue, the conditions have worsened. It's now brutal out there. So they launch the lifeboat and they get a tow from a steam-powered tug. Now when they get to the vicinity of the Ocean Queen, it becomes apparent that she's been driven aground on the sandbanks. And in that moment, the lifeboat crew make an on-the-spot decision, a big decision, one that will seal their fate eternally. They decide to abandon the rescue. But it's the correct decision to make. The conditions are dangerous, but the vessel that they're going out to rescue has ran aground. Tide is on the ebb. They can't actually get alongside safely, so no effective assistance is actually possible anyway. Right call to make. And they turn around and head back in. And about 15 minutes into their journey back in, freak wave. It breaks over the side of the boat with enormous force. An open top boat, remember, hasn't got a lid, so the boat capsizes. Not a problem, is it? It's been designed to right itself if it capsizes. Well, that would be the case, but when it capsizes, it gets capsized with such enormous force that one of the sailing masts beds itself into the sand at the bottom of the sea. So it gets stuck, and 12 of the 13 crew members are washed overboard into the dark, churning, icy water. One man, Thomas Kew, he manages to cling to the boat's rudder and eventually gets washed ashore. He survives. Another, William Bell, he gets tangled in the rigging underneath the boat's hull, and he's forced to stay with the boat in an air pocket until the mast eventually breaks and the boat rights itself, which ultimately leads to his survival as well. The other 11 crew members, they drown. Ready for the even more tragic part? The 6th crewman of the Ocean Queen, which is the vessel that they'd gone out to rescue, on the second rescue, they safely walk ashore when the tide goes out. By the next morning, the Saturday morning, word has spread around the town. And by the end of the weekend, news has reached further afield. And on Monday morning, the story's published in the national newspapers. The disaster left 10 widows. Almost 30 children were left without a father. The RNLI contributed £1,000 towards the families. 10 bodies of the 11 deceased were recovered. One was never found. They all received a joint funeral and they were buried in a mass grave. But there was never a headstone for that grave and no memorial plaque was ever put in place. Not having a memorial plaque is half understandable because they weren't really a thing until the 20th century. But to not have a gravestone with all their names on where they were buried, it's just beyond belief. It wasn't until 26 years later when Thomas Kew, one of the survivors, campaigned to put that right. And he wrote an open letter to get a memorial put in place. By this time, 26 years had passed since the tragedy, and in that time, the other survivor had died. So Thomas Kew was the last remaining survivor.
Dear friend, 10 lifeboatmen lie in the churchyard at Wells, and not a stone marks the place where they lie. I am the only survivor out of 13. Such a long time has passed since this sad occurrence that I feel I must at last appeal to the public for help to raise a memorial to these brave men who perished while doing their duty. They had English hearts, and I hope the public will do them honor for their brave act. Yours faithfully, Captain Thomas Kew.
Walk past this memorial to use these toilets. Now you know the story behind it. The letter notes, not a stone marks where they lie. But as years went by, relations of the deceased crew members also passed away. And when those relations passed away and got buried in the churchyard, they did get headstones that also commemorated the lost crew members. So let's go find them.
To raise a memorial to these brave men. They had English hearts.
Gonna have to be quick here to catch the sunset as well. Okay, found one in remembrance of Susan Elston, who died June 20th, 1874, which is before the disaster, aged 88 years. Also of her sons John Elston, aged 60 years, and Robert William, aged 62 years, who were drowned from the Wells lifeboat on October 29th, 1880, while executing their duty in rescuing shipwrecked seamen. In death, they were not divided. Also of Emily Parker, the beloved wife of Robert William Elston, who was the coxswain. But at least they got something. Okay, I found another. Erected in memory of Samuel Smith, died October 29th, 1880, aged 32. Also, Emily Sophia, wife of the above, died June 18th, 1915, aged 64. Also, Arthur Robert, son of the above, died August 20th, 1881, age 1 month. Wow. The grave of Thomas Kew is in there somewhere as well, but I haven't got time to find it. I've got to go and catch the sunset. That's the story of the Eliza Adams. Just imagine if you were one of those first crew and you got replaced, and the person you got replaced by lost their life. They had to live with that on their conscience for the rest of their life. These are lifeboatmen. If someone got in distress that same night or the next day, they had to go back out again. And these people are volunteers. Just one last note, and I wasn't really going to mention this, but if you do come to Wells next to Sea Beach, that there is the lifeboat launch ramp now at the end. Every week, throughout the summer, they get called to rescue people that get stuck on the sandbank over there. If you're coming to the beach here, please just read the signs about the tide, because I guarantee you, you'll come here, you'll see a big empty beach, you won't know what the tide is doing, and you'll go really far out on the sand, and the tide will be coming in. In the brief half an hour or so that you've been away from the shore, the deep water channel has filled up and you won't be able to get back to the beach huts. Please do just read the signs. Let's hope there's never a disaster like that anywhere in the world ever again. Time to get back to the bike. Just read the signs. My name is Kiddy, the channel's called Norfolk Kiddy, and if you love the Norfolk coast, please hit subscribe. See ya!